Well, how we doing? This is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr., and I wish to thank you for taking the opportunity of joining me here on my YouTube channel. This is a great opportunity, and I appreciate you. So why don't you take the opportunity to like and subscribe to this respective channel as we deal with faith, finance, and leadership. I'm here to be your architect of assistance. And once again, you have an opportunity to be a partner with us here at the Value of Money Collective. So once again, I thank you for taking the opportunity of watching this video and taking advantage of the teachings and the shares on this respective channel. And you can also support by doing it via Cash App, Greg Clarke MMA, $, Greg Clarke MMA. If you desire to do it via Venmo, you can do it at Gregory Clarke MMA. Remember, Clark has the E at the end. Don't forget the E. And once again, if you want to do it via Zelle or PayPal, you can do it via my email address, which is esquire971 at gmail.com. So once again, I don't desire to belabor long, but take advantage of the video that you're going to about to watch, and take advantage of being a part of the Value of Money Collective. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and make sure you like and share. Peace and love. Now enjoy the video. Well, good evening. Good evening. Good, great evening. This is Dr. Gregory Clarke Sr. And once again, I thank you for joining us for the Virtual Mankind Cave. Hopefully, I set a tone tonight. I set an atmosphere. For those of you who are viewing this video, yes, before you're hearing me right now, the people who are here live with us, who are going to help generate the conversation, was able to, we set a tone. You got to set an atmosphere. You can't just jump into anything. Even if you're going to a well, you have to prime the pump of the well before you jump into the well. You don't just say, "Give me some water." You gotta work that thing and make sure it's nice and it's primed so that the possibilities can open up. So once again, I appreciate those who have joined us. And I see a Nanette Tracy who has joined us this evening. Well, how are you doing this evening?
Good evening. How are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're glad to have you. Appreciate
Thank
you
you.
joining us. And can't wait to hear how you will help stimulate the conversation here tonight.
Oh, we'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. We interject. We don't just do a monologue here for the Virtual Mankind Cave. It's a dialogue.
Oh,
We're in the space of developing the conversation here. So if you have anything to add at particular points, believe in me, we will definitely will love a great interest of you to participate.
thank you. Thank
Very
you.
welcome. Very welcome. Very welcome. Next up, let me speak to the gentleman whose team beat us fair and square. They won fair and square, which led to, the coach getting fired today. Mr. Mark Davis, as they're preparing in Indiana for the finals on Thursday. How are we doing this evening, young man?
We are doing great over here in Indiana. We just sitting back, relaxing, and thinking about the parades that will be coming this way in the next couple of weeks.
Wow, this
And even though OKC is said to be the better team, we love the underdog role.
Okay. Well, in order to be a good winner, you also have to be a gracious loser, because you actually don't lose in life. There's many failures that you may experience, but if you stimulate those failures and you can grow from them, then you all of a sudden start to move into a space where it becomes beneficial. So I know the Knicks are going to grow from this, and we know Indiana will grow from this year as well. So great to have you here tonight, Mr. Davis. Great to have you here tonight.
Yeah, we'll be in the same place next year. It'll be Indiana versus the Knicks. I think the Knicks might, if they get the right coach,
I wouldn't be
they might
surprised.
take us.
I've heard some grumblings about a Michael Malone. You didn't hear from me. I just heard. It just seemed like since Denver let go of their coach, all of a sudden Mike Malone became available. Now all of a sudden you get rid of Tibbs. Those things, as Arsenio used to say, things that make you go, But
But what would happen to Brunson's father if they get Mike Malone?
no, he ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere. He'll be assistant. He'll be in the.
Okay.
Remember, Denver made the interim coach the permanent coach, so that whole staff is staying there in Denver under Adelman. So, he needs a staff. Maybe one or two may leave, but most of the staff is staying in Denver. So that means if Michael Malone ends up in New York, if per se that happens, I wouldn't be surprised. Most of the Knicks, because it's not really the friction wasn't with the assistant coaches, as everything is slowly coming out today, as all this stuff has been shared. It was really, the overuse of, because we noticed in this series, when all of a sudden they started playing 8, 9, 10 deep, all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, you're actually giving some of these starters who are playing like 42, 43 minutes a game a rest. And it's like, that wears on a body after a while, regardless of how cohesive a unit. But we shall see. But best of luck to Indiana.
Thank you.
Very welcome, very welcome. And that's why it segues me into we're gonna go into the gentleman from Boston. I wouldn't be surprised he may have a shirt on. He may attempt to turn on his camera and have some, banners behind him. But he's in that space where he's recognizing that, at least for the foreseeable future, the his particular team is, they might make the playoffs and but get bounced in the first round, next year because they won't have their all NBA first team player for at least all of next year. None other than Mr. Trevor Singleton. How are we doing today from Massachusetts?
So, good evening, Dr. Clarke. I understand in the past there's been some rumblings and ramblings, but I understand, and we can empathize where you are, and so I know the Knicks made a run, and there were a couple members here that were pretty strong
Ooh.
fans of Knicks, and had some declarations, but guess that fell to the ground. So, so and it fell hard. It was resounding. So yeah, but it's that early hype. It's that early. It's like you gotta crawl before you walk. So they've got enough time to build and to grow and what have you. And as I said, we in our wisdom and our history and experience are here for any insight that you would care to glean as you attempt to reclaim that status in the next season. So we are here for you. We commiserate, and we hope that this year of building will continue to grow and to develop into the team that you have in mind, and that mind becomes a reality. I am complete.
Thank you for that, Mr. Singh. I can't wait to hear your contributions tonight during the teaching. We accept that. We accept that. We accept that. Without further ado, let us go to Mr. Edward Franklin, who is laughing out loud down there from good old Florida. How is everything with you tonight, Mr. Franklin?
Prophet Trevor, you wow. Oh, good.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, sir. I appreciate it.
Well, Prophet Edward Frank, oh Lord, Prophet Edward Franklin is a gentleman who's used to losing because he's from Jacksonville, so he understands the plight of some of us that are going through certain accusations, and once Indiana continues to not have won an NBA championship at the end of the series, then they'll be long suffering like us Knicks fans. Our Knicks fans, we haven't won in 52 years and counting.
Ooh, Take a
And
breath.
Indiana has never won. And we can give credit. You know, Boston has the most championships in NBA history at 18. So we can acknowledge that. But we Jacksonville's on the come up. They finally got one good player. So we thank Mr. Franklin for being here tonight. Next up, let me go to him because I know Mr. Singleton is going to probably try to ride this young man kind of hard. So let me get this out the way. Mr. Calvin Osasami, Mr. Singleton probably got some words from you. How are you doing today, young man?
I'm doing well. I mean, you know, I will see the Knicks as the championships this lifetime. I will see it in this lifetime. I will. We were so close at that moment in time. And then with the news of what they just recently did as far as coaching was very interesting. So, um, the 2026 is definitely a new 2025 going to 2026 is a new season. And we'll just go for the best.
Excellent. I can't wait to hear your contribution tonight, as Mr. Singleton is informing us to keep hope alive, as our very own Reverend Jesse used to say. But anyway, let's keep going. Mr. William Richards, how is everything down there in St. Martin?
Everything irie, man.
Good, good. We're happy that everything is irie. And what is the temperature? Let's see what's the temperature like down by you.
81 degrees and mostly clear.
Excellent. That's nice. So the Northeast, we're trying to run lockstep with you. We was around that 80-degree temperature today as well, so it was a blessing. So hopefully you keep sending those good vibes by us, and we're gonna be straight. But I can't wait to hear your voice tonight as a part of the conversation.
Once a change, the Gulf of America from the Gulf of Mexico.
We've already started. Hey, can't wait to hear your thoughts tonight. Excellent, excellent. And
Yeah,
without
God
further,
bless.
God bless. And without further ado, let me go to my fellow Bronxite. Boogie Dale, we have that in common. And we do like some of the same teams, even though she's a Met fan. We don't hold that against her. But she still is a New Yorker at heart. So I give her major props for that. None other than our very own Miss Nicole Johnson. How are you doing this evening?
Good evening, Dr. Clark. I'm trying to recover from, I'm not sure what just happened. It started off sweet, then went downhill, then dung beetles appeared, and it was just horrible. But we bless God for growth and maturity, and I'm excited to be here this evening.
Excellent, excellent. I can't wait to hear your voice contributing and sharing some thoughts on a special issue. It's excellent. Here
Oh,
we this one
oh,
coming
I'm
up.
sorry. Is my camera on? Hold on. I'm on my phone. Let me just turn this off here. Okay. Thank you. Sorry. There we go.
This one here. Okay, okay. Okay. We got you. We got you. We got you. And none other, let's go to our other gentleman from the great state of Florida. Maybe he's walking the trail. Maybe he's at home sedentary. Maybe we may see an alligator tonight. You never know. None other than Mr. Everett Guthrie. How are you doing tonight?
Benjamin, right. I'm very, 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 I'm thinking I'm in a comedy session tonight. I like the poetic conversation. My my kids just asked me to go for a walk by themselves, which is a rare occurrence. I was asking them if they're really going for a walk or they have something else in mind. It was actually raining outside before, and they actually had to go walk. So probably it's because they had summer break now. They kind of feel because they have never agreed to go for a walk with me before. I know they went by themselves because I'm doing some updates on the computer, so I couldn't go with them. But it's a little bit rainy day, but that's the thing about Florida. In the summertime is actually the wettest season of all. But so you gotta time your activities, and you know what I mean. There's thunderstorms and stuff, but it's still I prefer this than the cold, so I'll take it.
No problem, no problem. So it's great to hear your voice. Can't wait to hear your contribution as well. And we're about to get into it because, everything is not stimulated by, what's going on in Washington, even though there's a big influencer around it. So tonight we're going to be in a great conversational starter.
And I must commend you on the mix. It was exceptionally well.
Oh yeah,
And
well, we had to do a little old school. Kirk
yeah,
Franklin with some Maverick City, and
yeah,
that was needed because sometimes you gotta let people, as Kendrick says, sometimes you gotta pop out and show people.
definitely. And you
So
do it very well.
it's
I'm
bring.
I'm at a little Father's Day event on the beach on Father's Day, and
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna borrow some of your type of mixes. I like your approach.
No problem, no problem, no problem. Stimulate the energy in a positive way, positive way. So with that being said, we're gonna jump right into the teaching because we always got to think about what is the possibilities here. What are the possibilities? And the reason why the possibilities are so important is because we are understanding, where we're going and how we need to be, established in certain ways and certain particulars. So as we get this slideshow ready, can we see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Excellent,
yes, Stephen.
excellent, excellent, excellent. So tonight's start, we're going to talk about some goal setting, but we're going to deal with the fact of building generational wealth and why we're going to breaking the 3-generation curse. And what's the 3-generation curse? Well, we're going to get into that tonight because, it gives us an opportunity, especially the majority of us in our community, African American community, or those of us of African descent, we start to recognize how at times we're not well positioned. And that's why we're staying on the financial literacy conversation, but we're not well positioned to create those avenues of generational wealth. Now, you may be at the particular generation where you're starting to create some level of wealth. Now, the whole thing about it is, can it be sustained? Because without sustainability, it's a great, as we were talking about the sports angle, the New York team started off well and kind of gave away the first game. Maybe if they didn't give away that first game, who knows what could have been the outcome of the ultimate series. But you kind of knew they lost the series because they gave away that first game. And it's the same way with wealth. There are times that you could be in the game and everything is going well and everything is going fine, as even Miss Johnson was alluded to, everything's going well. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, now it's time for me to pass the ball off or to hand the baton over. Then all of a sudden those individuals start dropping the baton or miss shots or not doing their part in the overall team dynamic of keeping this sustainability going. And so, too many times we have to start to have these more relevant conversations, especially in our community, when it comes about generational wealth. So, as the title page alludes to, money doesn't manage itself, at least not in your favor. We're going to learn how African American families can create lasting financial legacies that survive beyond the 3rd generation. That's the important thing. Generational wealth has to be a necessary discussion. See, in other communities, they may talk about bills and finance and things of that nature, but there's also a conversation of, okay, what is going to keep us sustainable? And if we're not in the sustainability conversation, we can have all the things, we can point our finger at Washington or whoever's in the White House and stuff like that. And technically, those don't really have true power over us because we know certain systems, because even politics is a system. Certain systems move in their own dynamic. Now, the benefit that you have to recognize is that how do you maneuver in those particular ways? Because politics is not just governmental. Politics happens in your family. Politics happens, especially church world. Forget about it. If you don't think politics plays a key and how certain things maneuver. That's the reason why we got denominations. That was mainly politics. This one didn't agree with this one's view, and all of a sudden you have another distinction still connected to the source and the foundation. But no, we're gonna do our stuff over here like this, and they're gonna do our stuff over here like that. So when you start to recognize How are you well positioning yourself, especially when it comes to generating wealth? Is going to be a greater dynamic that allows for you to share something beyond just saying, okay, you're here to take care of bills or make money to pay bills and to go on. That's not what you're here for. There's a level of sustainability and legacy building that can be accomplished if you so choose to do so. Any thoughts before I go into the next slide? Excellent. Okay. I'm going to ask our new participant, Miss Nanette Tracy, if she would be so kind to read this slide for us. This is part of what we talk about, about participating. It's not just a monologue. We get involved here.
Sure. The Vanderbilt Curse. Generation one, the builder. Cornelius Vanderbilt built $100 billion fortune, but failed to teach his children how to maintain it. He was at one point richer than the U.S. Treasury. Let's see. Generation two, the stewards. William Vanderbilt doubled the family fortune, but lacked his father's entrepreneurial drive. No trust structures or long term wealth management strategies were in place. Generation three, the spenders. Grandchildren treated spending like an Olympic sport. The fortune vanished within a century. They valued status over substance, luxury over legacy.
Now think about that. When you start to think about it, and this is actually documented, and just like there's another thought that builds on this when they talk about short sleeves, long sleeves or short sleeves. I forgot the meaning of the title, but you can find it, and it deals with this particular curse, and it's all about how do you sustain financial stability? How do you maintain financial sustainability? See, the Vanderbilt name, like here in New York, they even have a Nap Avenue, a little Nap Avenue in Manhattan that's named after the Vanderbilts. And at one point, just like they said, they were the richest family. They were like what the Waltons are now. The richest family in this country is the Walton family. Those who inherited from this Walmart legacy. You're talking about each one of the family, there was six of them. Each one of them are worth close to 100 billion. So when you think about it, you say, oh no, there's people who are worth more than 100 billion. But then when you put them all together, you start to recognize there's power in synergy. There's power in how that they were able to create structures. And just like as Miss Tracy was reading about Generation 2, there are structures that are in play that we can place over ourselves that recognize, after a while, is that house really should be in your name? I'm not here to be your financial um, advisor or consultant, but those are some of the questions that you start to recognize when you start moving in wealth conversations. You start to understand, like, okay, why does this person control everything but owns nothing? You may hear a thought like that. Or how's this one can tell people what to do, but technically, that entity is what it is. And you're sitting there like, what is going on? But some people have conversations where they're really just having conversations as an employee. I'm just here to do my hours. So I can get my paycheck either this at the end of the week or every 2 weeks. So when you look at this particular slide, does anyone have any thoughts that they wish to add into the conversation in regards to either generation one, generation two, or generation three?
Generational wealth is a definite necessity. And unless we begin to have that kind of conversation, how do we operate in that without there even being a conversation around it? The moment you begin to start having conversation, you become open to possibilities. For example, every time you desire to learn something new, you desire to get into a new realm, you begin to find yourself having different types of conversation. And it's these different types of conversation that leads to a different circle of influence, different network, different opportunities begin to open up for information connected to whatever it is you're now interested in. And you see time and time again. But the first step is to begin to be open and to begin to engage in these type of conversations. That's why this type of setting and this kind of consistent conversation is so important. We are building new possibilities that were not and would not have been possible had we not gathered ourselves together around this type of conversation. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I love that. And we can see the Vanderbilt curse is not just limited to the Vanderbilt family. There are definitely other families, and too many times may even look like us. But some of it is systemic. So I'm not going to put it all on us like we don't have the ability to create sustainability in our wealth. Some of it was strategized by other things and other outcomes and other jealousies and things of that nature. But after a while, we have to really start to undergird ourselves and be responsible enough to say, you know what? We can start to, it's not so much pulling ourselves by the bootstraps, but it's recognizing that we can break this curse, or we can make sure that our family doesn't fall in line with this particular curse. And that's what it's ultimately about. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, as you were talking about how the different families maintained their wealth, I looked up the top 10 richest families in America, and they all have a common bond of all their money's in family trust, and that specifically, I forgot which family, they literally groom their heirs to make sure that they maintain the family image and branding to ensure
Mm.
a legacy of wealth. And that's not something that we do. We tell our kids, work hard, save, and you'll have a little bit to save for the next generation. That's not quite enough. We need to get actual strategies in place. And it's the fact that these kids are taught from the age of 12 how to start to maintain a family trust is amazing. And I'm complete.
No, excellent. Thank you for that contribution. That is so true. And that's why it's up to us to change the narrative. Something that I know me and Dr. Cheryl Clark alluded to. There was a time frame where, since I'm a Gen Xer, there was a time frame by the time I was about 2021, I was already out my house. There was no real conversations about wealth generation or, I was being told, go to school so I can get a good career, so I can get a good job. And hopefully in 40, 50 years, they'll give me a gold-plated watch and I'll get a pension that hopefully I can enjoy maybe 10 years of before I go on to glory. That's not living. That's technically just existing. And that's what when you really think about it, the pedagogy of oppression is about. It's about putting you in a system where there's a difference between certain kids who go through public schools, charter schools, and preparatory schools. And it may sound not correct when some people would feel that they feel a type of way about it, but it is what it is. You have your public schools, which anyone can walk through the door if you're a citizen, you live in that particular area, you register your child, and whatever that school district and school system has mandated as a curriculum, that's what they give them. If this school over here, charter school, now and then we get to charter schools. Charter schools, sometimes they may be a little selective. Maybe they'll do a little investigation, maybe not only on the child, but on the family. See, are they going to be conducive for this particular environment? There's been some pushback on charter schools, but then charter schools still have their purpose as well. Because charter schools take the public school mandate and just bump it up a little bit. They're like that in between till you get to the preparatory level. Now, the preparatory level, I know probably Ms. Johnson has heard about some of these schools like Fieldston, Horace Mann, Riverdale Country Day, Riverdale Country Day, and all these. These are preparatory schools. Now, when people get their children in these type of environments, all of a sudden the public schools that would try to frown upon them about using technology. No, don't use the technology. Technology is this and technology is that. And the preparatory schools, they're encouraging this. They're preparing them to say, wait a minute, this is the new landscape that's happening. So we're going to make sure that you have the tools so you can navigate. So then eventually the kids who go to the preparatory schools, and if they stay in those preparatory areas, regardless if it's their middle school and then their high school, and then they get into the particular institution of college that they so choose, because those colleges will pick the litter and say, oh, wait a minute, you preparatory kids, we want you. We desire you. Haven't you noticed that the majority of our presidents, other than, no, Biden was a lawyer too. So other than Trump, maybe two presidents, including Trump, that weren't lawyers. Because you have to have some semblance of understanding. If you're going to administer, you should know about it. But we always have our outliers. But when it comes to the Vanderbilt curse, we can definitely be aware of it so we can break it and make sure that we don't participate in it. Okay, I will ask Mr. Osasami, can you please read this slide? Let's see if he's there.
Sure. Understanding entropy and wealth. Wealth creation. Hard work builds initial fortune. Wealth maintenance requires active stewardship. Wealth dissolution. Without financial education, inheritance becomes fuel for destruction.
Now, anyone would love to deal with that thought. Why would I say inheritance becomes fuel for destruction?
Since I'm speaking, I can see even with a comparison of people who win the lottery, the minute that they inherit such large amounts of money, they have no financial literacy around how to steward over that money. So it's all gone within the first 3 years of it. The same thing you can say with inheritance. Someone who worked so hard to build that wealth up and get it to a space so that it was handed to them, if they don't have the knowledge to steward over that money well, it'll almost have the same it'll have the same conclusion. And I'm complete.
Excellent, excellent. Anyone else?
I think it's very important to be truly honest and observe your children. No matter how you desire to impart, not everybody's going to be receptive. And I think a lot of times we give too many choices as opposed to incorporate habits that just become a part of your lifestyle. Just as simple as you, for example, incorporating prayer in your routine. We can normalize incorporating financial education as a part of our lifestyle. And then you have to be very objective in observing family members and who really fit given certain type of responsibility and certain roles. Because as you said, the perpetuation of wealth, building trust, building entities. Not everybody is whether they're upon your bloodline. Sometimes you have to take steps to be proactive about this kind of thing where even if somebody was supposed to go haywire, for example, the wealth will be maintained because systems are prioritized over personalities. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that thought. Thank you for that thought. And so these are the three stages of wealth. You can either be creating it, maintaining it, or it's going to end up in dissolution. And that aligns with the Vanderbilt curse. You're at Cornelius, who built it up, but to the point that, probably some of you have heard about the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. One of I think the largest mansion in the country. Beautiful. I've never been there, but eventually one day I'm going to go to the Biltmore Estate. Beautiful grounds, meticulous. Cornelius Vanderbilt built that. And William Vanderbilt didn't have the same, gumption as his father, but, he was still strategic in certain things, in certain aspects. But by the time it got to his children were just more enamored, as I guess Mr. Osasami would say, the kids were just wanting to floss and just have everything under the sun that was name brand, not recognizing, okay, are we replenishing this? Is it being replenished? Or are we just making an assumption, great granddad thanking for him so we can have this money to spend? And that's why in so many attributes, especially even here, we don't talk about spending money, we talk about circulation. Your money should be in a space where what is it actually, is it bringing you back it's not only just supposed to bring you back things, what is the purpose of it? Money is a tool. And if you use the tool properly, just like any wrench, any screwdriver, any mallet, then if you're using it for what it's supposed to be for, then there's a benefit. But at the same time, if you use that same tool, like the hammer or the mallet, and you bang yourself on the foot, that's not what it's meant for, but it's going to cause pain. But what would you do? Blame the tool or blame the person who's swinging the tool or utilizing the tool? Just a thought. Okay, let us see. I'm going to ask Miss Nicole Johnson to read this one. And of course, we always read in a clockwise way, starting from hard times. So you may begin.
The generational cycle, hard times, create strong individuals who respect the process, investment, and work of building the wealth. Strong individuals create good times where some of the enjoyment of the proceeds is being proceeds is being experienced. Good times create weak individuals who are just exploiting the pursuits of the forerunners. Weak individuals create hard times without the effectiveness of the individuals who manifested through the hard times.
Now, we all have to be honest with ourselves. We can look in our life right now to see where we're at in the cycle. Because we're all of us are somewhere on the cycle. We have to be. Because if you're in your hard times and you're starting to see like, wait a minute, I'm building a business, I'm starting to invest in real estate, I'm starting to invest in the markets, I'm starting to do all the things where I'm seeing that my money is working for you. The reason why it's hard times is because when you're building something, foundations like building a structure or a house, the foundation has to be strong. It's got to be hard. You're not going to put it on something soft or something like the sand is sinking or the land is sinking. Then there's going to be nothing for it to develop on top of it. So even though we call it hard times, don't look at hard times as a bad thing. Because anyone who has persevered and allowed themselves to get to a space of general wealth had to go through hard times. It's not easy times. And too many times we look for certain things to be easy. Oh, why can't it just be, let me, let me cut the line. Let me do the shortcut. Okay, yeah, they can give you the shortcut. And that's why, as you alluded to, and as Miss Johnson and, even Miss Sosa Sammy alluded to, there are people who've hit the lottery. Could be $100 million. And all of a sudden, 4 or 5 years later, they're filing bankruptcy. And you're like, wait, what? Where did the money go? No financial planning. Became an overspender, not a circulator. Didn't do any spaces of reinvestment. Because now all it's about flossing and buying all the things and anything that has a name brand attached to it. It's like, hire money so I can just, you're going to be caught up in the Vanderbilt curse. I mean, think about it. That was a family that at one point, at the turn of the 19th going into the 20th century, were at one point, late 19th century, where that one family, based upon what Cornelius did, had more money than the U.S. Treasury. That buys power. And now we go into politics. And as we started to see, usually lately, people who have been running for certain spaces in politics have been your ultra wealthy. They recognize they're not really going into politics for, per se, the income. Because we have a great example here in New York City. From 2001, 2013, we had one mayor, Michael Bloomberg. He refused to stay in Gracie Mansion, which saved the city a couple of $1 million each year because he had a Upper East Side townhouse. He says, why would I do that? Why would I put that expense to the city? We'll use it for, ever so often, like, we're, having like the president comes and stuff like that and things of that nature, stuff that deals with my duties. But for me to have the upkeep here, no. So the city saved for those 12 years the real upkeep, other than the basic maintenance of the structure. He took $1 per year. So that means the city of New York With the all 8, 9 million people within it. Him being the mayor, being responsible of all the different access and attributes that deals with the metropolis of the largest city in the United States. He earned $1 per year. And this is where I'm going to ask Nicole, Miss Nicole, because I know her astuteness in finding out the information. Just query your Abraham Isaac to ask it this simple question. Mayor Michael Bloomberg was worth what in 2001? And what was he worth in 2013 when he finally left office? Because the city council even changed the law, because usually it was only allowable for a mayor to only serve 8 years, 2 terms. He ended up getting a 3rd term. And he still would stay. So for 12 years, other than basic maintenance of Gracie Mansion, and this man only pocketing $1. Man in New York makes probably, I think, $400,000 or $500,000 a year. It took $1. I want to show you how sometimes we look at money and think money is wealth. And that's the main reason why we're having this conversation tonight. A desire for you to see that money is not wealth. It's what you do when you're well positioned and how you're building the necessary networks around you will put you in a particular cycle of your life. Because as much as you may not like it, you are in one of these cycles. Each of us are. No one's escaping that. Now, let me see if Miss Johnson, by chance, got that information that I asked her to query.
I did, and my flabbers are gasted.
Oh, why is your flabbers aghasted?
In 2000, he had an estimated net worth of $4 billion. In
Not bad.
2013, $27 billion.
Wait.
Whoa.
Wait. Now, you heard Miss Nicole, because this is not Dr. Clarke creating some data or creating some line. No, this is documented stuff. So when Bloomberg took over for Giuliani, he was already a billionaire. Those of you who have seen Bloomberg TV, or most of the people who work in the financial markets, people had their Bloomberg terminals. That's where he made his wealth. He became mayor, was already a billionaire, $4 billion. While he was mayor, as he groomed his daughter, who had good business sense, and he put her in the right schools, she had the right education. He said, young lady, while I'm doing this political thing, I need you to keep minding the store. Because eventually, if you mind the store correctly, I'm not going to live forever. So that means whatever's mine, I probably got this stuff in trust, and the trust is going to just transfer to you as the beholder and the holder of the trust. And now, whatever's mine, now you save on all those estate taxes and worrying about transfer this and no, it's all in trust. So he was doing good. $4 billion. Hey, that's nothing to sneeze at. Hey, bless you. You're a billionaire. How did his wealth jump up almost 700% in 12 years? What you think about that? And you sit there, oh, he must have. No, he didn't steal from the city of New York. Well, he must have got it. He got $1 a year. Yeah, but no, he didn't do that. He didn't do anything shady. All he did was make sure that what he was focused on this area, he made sure he had the right pieces in place, playing chess, to keep building, keep acquiring. Of course, he would know what's going on with the business. Oh, yeah, I would advise you to do this. And she did it. And by the time he finally stepped out, after 12 years of serving as the mayor of New York, his net worth was almost 700% higher. This is not about a salary. And that's why sometimes when we focus on salary, we're focused on such a minute and small thing. And I always go back to what Shaquille O'Neal said when he left the Orlando Magic in 1996 and went to the Lakers. And he signed a 7-year deal, $120 million. And people were clapping, Shaq, you got one of the biggest contracts in sports history in this and the third. He says, no, I understand that. They said, no, what does it feel to be wealthy? And he answered them. He said, I'm not wealthy. And it perplexed some of the reporters at the time. Because the man is sitting there and says, wait a minute, you got a $120 million contract. Most NBA contracts are guaranteed. So that means he's going to get the $120 million over the 7 years. He says, nah, this is life-changing wealth. He said, I'm not wealthy. So yeah, y'all got it twisted. I'm no dummy. Mr. Bus is wealthy. Because if Mr. Bus can sign me to a contract that can guarantee me $120 million over 7 years, he's wealthy. I'm just rich. Now, if I'm smart, I'm going to find out from him how he became wealthy. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
Yeah, I literally looked up Bloomberg's strategy for maintaining his wealth. He owns his company outright, the recurring revenue model, so there's always something generating funds, private equity, he has all his stuff, of course, locked up, and then the philanthropy and tax strategy to reduce tax burden. That's true. Brand synergy, media empire, and then most important, legacy planning using trust and possible foundations to ensure continuity and avoid taxes. Tax strategy.
So when you hear all some of the stuff that's going on in Washington, when you hear them saying about this big, beautiful bill, this is where we'll just digress for a little quick moment about what's going on there in Washington. See, that big, beautiful bill is about making into law the tax bill, the tax strategies that when this president was the 45th president enacted, which meant if you're an entrepreneur, if you're in the top 10%, you saw a little uptick. Now, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not going to sit here in front and be like, wait a minute, you're giving me the opportunity to figure out a way to keep more of my income that I earn in my pocket. I'm not going to fuss with you. My whole thing is that I can't rock out with the way that you're treating certain pockets of the populace that you're supposed to be governing. Because we recognize that Trump has never taken care of anyone in his life except for Trump. Based upon, if my wife was on, she would share about, the psychosis and the psychological background and all that stuff. So we recognize that. Trump is a narcissist who takes care of himself. And he's going to create a legacy for himself and his family. Got that. That's why anytime you see him swinging a golf club is at one of his golf courses, which the federal government is paying his golf company. I mean, so many contracts. What you gonna do about it? Now you can fight against it and get mad with it, or recognize, how do I play that same game? Without the misogyny and without the, divisiveness. But the principles are not mocked. The principles can still be utilized just because the hue of your skin color. Got nothing to do with that. It's about, are you willing to recognize, as the same way you can see you're in one of these particular cycles at this moment, how can you allow your money to start to not just you work for it, but it works for you? That's how the rich, as you heard Ms. Johnson allude to about how did Bloomberg continue to still, until this very day, is still churning money.